Okay, fucked up news in this world. Tim Avicii dead. I mean, this life. What the fuck is up with people? So, I thought I'd start talking about it since I'm Swedish. He's Swedish. We're both were living in Stockholm. I did a documentary series as he was coming up about EDM, Swedish EDM, like 3 artists that all of them have like played with him, tour with him. I don't know him, but I have. I mean, when he did his headlining show in Miami at the Ultra Festival in 2013, I think, that was when he was coming up. That's when we shot a series at the same time. So we were in Miami at the same time. It was a TV show that was called Heartbeats. It was 4 hours, 4-hour series on Swedish television, Swedish commercial television, about the rise of 3 DJ stars in Sweden. None of them reached his level, but like living that whole scene for like 2 years that the series was going on was like insane. And I've been at like shows with Tiesto. I've shot a lot with like Swedish House Mafia. Like the producer that made the show made Tim's music videos, like crazy. And then like all of a sudden, like dead. Super fucked up and weird. And even though I don't know him, I'm just like so, I don't know what to say. I watched the documentary just now before this live stream, and I was just like, oh, it's a really good documentary. Go see it. But like, oh, it's heavy, man. It's heavy to see. And the whole aspect of seeing it after the fact is like so crazy. Because you can see so much of you can see the thing coming. Not that it would like end up like this, because nobody knows like what happened, but probably it has something to do with his health condition. And then, you know, he's on the top. I think it was like valued at like $7.3 billion or something like that, something crazy. And, you know, all of a sudden, you know, dead in Oman. That's so crazy. Like, there's no words that can describe the whole thing. And I lived that whole scene as he was coming up. I shot like for 2 years constantly. I was touring the whole world, like Australia, the US. Only place I didn't go where another guy went was to India. But otherwise, I was all over the world with these DJs and filming that whole thing. And it's just crazy to see, because you see so many like of the same type of managers or all that stuff around. Like when you watch the doc, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But that whole documentary about Avicii is just like, it just shows that world like I see it as well from the outside. And I mean, when I was at the Ultra Festival in Miami shooting, I was shooting the DJs and he was headlining. I mean, a Swedish artist on that level headlining the Ultra Music Festival was massive, and you heard levels being played all over Miami, and coming there as like a Sweden, just hang out. Yeah, it's just insane. And we have a lot of like similar, like friends of friends, that type of thing. I mean, we're both from Stockholm. It's not a big city. And a lot of the people that I've worked with has worked with him. Yeah, it's super, super fucked up. So, yeah, sad to see how, you know, probably the biggest artist in Sweden just died, 28 years of age. That's crazy. 28 years of age. I can't even, like, why the fuck? Anyway, so off to a positive start here. But I mean, I did this web series because it was 15 parts, about like 18 minutes each, about these 3 house DJs. All of them were touring, they were like on the rise. None of them made that like big leap that he did, but all of them toured with him. All of them was promoted by him. All of them went around, like a lot of them played back to back on his sets, and it's just insane to think about it. Because I mean, at one point I was with one of the artists, and I was like drinking shots with like Tiesto's brother up on the stage as Tiesto is playing, and you know, you're in this world and you don't think or reflect about it as a documentary filmmaker, and then all of a sudden, like now as a thing like this happens, you just like, oh fuck, you start to think back of like everything you did, because like 2 years of my life was like pretty much just EDM non-stop. Now I don't listen to it that much, so it's kind of weird, and like, yeah. Anyway, so on to some questions here, but if you have the chance, watch the documentary. It's an amazing documentary, I think, and it really kind of takes you really close to this whole thing, even though it happened before. But yeah. What I started thinking about as this whole thing happened, and as I'm watching the doc, I'm just like, oh fuck, this is exactly how I kind of feel with doing stuff for other people, because the whole doc is about him just being like eaten alive by his management and like all the people that want to make money off of him, and his condition is like screwed up. So he, you know, wants to stop playing and doing shows and all that. I don't know. That was a long time ago, so it's not like it's a spoiler or anything. But it's the same thing in the film industry. I just feel that way when I make stuff, that I just want to get away from the whole industry. I don't want to be part of that whole thing where you get sucked in just having to make stuff in a certain way, and it's so generic, and like, there's a scene in that doc where there's an interview scene, or like he's supposed to record something that's supposed to go out, like, hi, I'm Tim, Avicii, watch this, la 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 la, like some promotional type of thing. And I mean, I've done those tours with like Adrian Lux, I've done it with Charlie XCX, and you just feel it in the artists that like they hate this, they hate the media obligations, and they hate this whole like people demanding stuff from them. And I feel exactly the same about like my filmmaking. I don't want to be part of that whole, like, the old way of making stuff, being dependent on these gatekeepers and like making docs, asking for permission to make docs. I think that sucks. That's the way it has been, but it doesn't have to be. That's why we started like the YouTube channel and all that, because the more you can kind of decide your future, the more free you will feel. And the irony is that like he had so much money, had like everything, and he still didn't feel free. He's still like, yeah, super sad, and an introverted guy, obviously, and then alcohol and all on top of that. But crazy. But I just feel the same about the film industry, because when you do work in film, you're part of that whole thing as well, because you have like agents, you got the distributors, you got the TV, you got all these gatekeepers, you got the film funders. All of them are in like this position of hierarchy where you're below and they're above, and you're the one that is making the stuff for them to kind of earn anything. And I just think people need to stop giving a fuck about that and just make stuff that makes them happy, and then, you know, things will probably work out. I mean, if you keep doing the stuff that everybody else does, keep copying what everybody else does, you're never gonna find a unique way of doing stuff. You have to kind of be able to just throw stuff away and do something else, and that's what I think like Tim did. I think it's a super poppy generic sound that he had, but he made it at like this unique, authentic way, and to see a person like that being eaten alive by the whole industry and all that, that's so screwed up. I think that's fucked up. So, make the stuff that you want to make. Don't get sucked in by the industry. And definitely do not like do this whole chasing of like, oh, I want to premiere at Sundance, oh, I want to sell to HBO, oh, I want to do like the Netflix deal. Like those things comes when you're ready for them. Chasing them down, like we chased Netflix down, but we did it in a way that we never felt like if we didn't succeed we would feel like we didn't accomplish like a failure. Basically we always felt like that struggle was fun and all, even though like it's a struggling thing and it can get tense at times. It's still, you cannot get like locked into this depression way of thinking if you're gonna do stuff like this. If you go out and you want to make documentaries, or if you want to do art, whatever it is, you absolutely cannot do it if you depend on like the depression for creating stuff. That's gonna like kill you basically. Yeah, but anyway, let's get to some questions so I don't talk about like all this depressing shit all day. But see the documentary, and yeah, hopefully we know more in the future what happened to him. Okay, so I got something. My grandpa visited on Friday. He was an amateur filmmaker, 8mm, and in school. Yeah, he gave me books that are 60 years old and basic about film ideas, directing, and cutting. Then digital editing options, but the rest applies for today. I want to know if it's best to read those old books or buy something new instead. I think it's a mix. Like, read stuff that's old. All that stuff still applies today, but the tools are different and the way of doing it is different. All the theory and all that is going to be the same. Storytelling is going to be the same. In a way, I think that you can feel more inspired and more liberated in creativity if you aren't kind of bound by these ways of thinking of today. So if you read a book today, what can happen is that you get like a rigid template of how to do it within today's framework. And that's going to make it generic and boring. While if you go to the old school type of filmmaking, you're going to apply that on your personal opinions of what film is today. And that's going to create something more unique, I think. But read both. I wouldn't say, one is better than the other, but it's a really good way of kind of learning about what people in the past has done will kind of show you the way to go forward. I was super inspired by, for instance, Roy Andersson, who he did his thing. He did like commercials and then he did his films. He funded the films by doing his commercials. And he sustained his filmmaking by doing that. Also like Stefan Jarl, who is a documentary filmmaker, super inspired by how he made his films, especially the Mods trilogy, which I think everybody should watch. And just reading about those people, or Ingmar Bergman, for instance, reading about how they worked, why they were geniuses. That's important, I think. So like biographies or that sort of thing, you can learn a lot from. Handbooks can be kind of hard because it can be like 80% is worthless or even 90 and 10% is genius. So it can feel like a waste of time, but you will find stuff that is really good, I think. Even though I think you can probably find a book that has that genius and updated as well, that you can apply more efficiently maybe. But I think if you don't look at the old people that has made stuff, you won't see that everything is exactly the same, but it's just another age. Um, Stefan Jarl or all these people that made docs in like, I guess, 70s, 80s, they went through the exact same struggles in terms of funding. Nothing has changed at all. Bo Widerberg in Sweden, same thing. Nothing has changed. It's not gonna change, I think. I think it always has come down to who's the most productive, and like a mix of artist, business, mind, or they at least like allied with those people that were like their big complementary type of partner, and then they made it successfully. But to just like see, because I've had like filmmakers that I work with that see like Ingmar Bergman as like just old, and they don't understand like why he was such a genius. But if you can't see that in old people, like why they have created the path that you're on, if you're making something, they changed the game, and then that made it possible for you to do what you do today. And that's what I think people need to kind of see in the old stuff. Not so much like, okay, so path forward. You need to see where the path is from that. Hi, I have one film school in town, but getting accepted there is nearly impossible. And I know people say you can't make it without film school. Oh, you can definitely make it without film school. Film school sucks. But oh, you can make it. Oh, exactly. I read wrong here. So correction, yes, you can make it without film school. But still, I'm unsure about my future. You know, if you want to make docs, most people that make docs, the ones that has a unique ID, or the ones that see things that nobody else does and does films about that. The people that do that are usually either people that has studied like anthropology, or they've studied like science, so they make science doc. It's usually somebody that has a niche, or is interested in a certain thing and find details and stories within that. Like general film school will not make you a good filmmaker. It won't. It won't make you a good storyteller. And maybe it can make you an effective like director or something like that, but you're not going to become an artist that has a unique story to tell by going to film school. So if that's what you're after, then like live life, do things, like go on journeys, do stupid stuff, do not so stupid stuff, all that. That's more important than going to film school. And then it's easy to have a camera today, so document that, and maybe you find a path. If you go to film school, what you do get is a way into the industry and to work. But most people that do that, they are not a unique filmmaker. Like 98% are total shit-ass filmmakers. Maybe they can technically compose an image and do like that type of stuff, but they cannot tell a story that people care about. So know that when you go to film school. Going to an art school would definitely find more of a unique storyteller within you than going to film school. But going to film school will teach you how to use the tools in the correct way, and that type of thing. And that can be like, it's not a bad thing, but you need to know that it won't it won't teach you how to be a better storyteller. That's up to you living your life, learning things like how things are in life, to tell stories and to kind of package and embody that into something. Because like this film about Avicii, for instance, it could have been done in so many ways. In the wrong hands, it would be a super positive, flashy type of thing, like Swedish House Mafia's first Take One film, which was like just a promo type of concert video for them. And it was like a pointless thing if you're not a hardcore fan. It wasn't a doc that was interesting because it didn't have anything interesting. It's just like them partying and doing that whole thing. And sure, for the hardcore fans, that's enough. But as a doc, not so much. This film, because this film has come out now when he died, I mean, it created a different depth to it. But because it's told in a pretty dark manner, but still a positive type of, like, it's both. That makes it so much more complex, and that's the interesting thing about it, that it makes it so complex, and yeah, you shouldn't have any answers after watching it. You should just keep asking questions. The same happened when Malik Bendijul, who made Searching for Sugar Man and took his life, Pressure and all that. He's also like worked with a lot of people that I work with. We work with the same TV channel. We work with the same commissioning editor at the Swedish Public Broadcaster. Who's interested in Confused African, by the way? But when he died, it was just the same type of, what the fuck? He had everything. He won an Oscar for the doc. He had like his whole life ahead of him, like everything. And then he kills himself. You're just like, what the fuck? And that's like, it makes the story so much more complex about him, because you have him making Searching for Sugar Man, and then you're just like, but why? That's the answer to the question that you want to search in a documentary. If you make a documentary about a person like that, for instance, that's the question you want to ask and like dig deep into. And for you to see those things, you don't have to go to film school. What you need to do is live life, see things, experience things, and then package life in a cinematic way that affects people. That's the most important talent. And sure, you can get better at that at film school, but you first need to kind of live life. That's why most young filmmakers fail, because they haven't lived life. Yeah. There's not a lot of like Javier Dolans, is that how you pronounce his name? That are like, I don't know how old he was, but like he's had like all his film in Cannes and is like 20 something. That's crazy. Those people exist, just like Tim was one of those people that just like at the age of like 20 or I guess 17, 18 I think he was, as it took off with Bromance, who a friend of mine made a music video for it. It's like, yeah, crazy. Anyway, how do you stay productive as a documentary filmmaker on a daily basis when your projects are getting delayed? Do you mean documentary basis when your projects are getting delayed? I guess you mean when you don't get funding, for instance. It's kind of a struggle with like funding stuff, and the way that I've kind of made it work has been to have like separate things. So first, I'm a commercial director, and that's my daily bread type of work. So I would love for that to be much more the same stuff that I do for docs, but in Sweden the industry is not at all where it should be. Like, people are so behind, it's insane. The money is put on these like 30-second spot for like the TVC type of commercials for television, and I'm just like amazed with how much money. Like, a friend of mine, he pitched on this thing that has, I guess a budget of like, is it like 1 million? Yeah, over $1 million US for a commercial, and you're just like, wow, why do you throw so much money on those commercials? But of course, yeah, they work somehow, but I just feel like a consumer that it's a total waste of time. So for me, that's been one part of my career, and I don't focus so much on trying to make that into something that can compete with like my documentary career, for instance. because I read this book way back called is it called Originals? I think it's called Originals. And there was this funny thing in that where they kind of compares a lot of artists, and like most of them that are original, they had one like safe zone, which was like the bread and butter type of job, and then they had the stuff that was their artistry where they could be 100% original. And as I was like hearing that, I'm just like, exactly, that's exactly how it is. Most people that I know that are innovative and that are like totally without any boundaries in their artistry, they have a second type of way of making money. And that's what I think people need to kind of realize, that if you have that, it's easier to be productive because you don't have the constraints that everybody else does. Because most people have to do it in a certain way because they're depending on only one thing. So I've had that. I had the commercial directing for a while now. Before that, I had the cinematography career, especially in like television, so, and editor as well. So I did that just to kind of fund my docs and fund me having time to make my docs and let those take time. So I've never had like an ambition to fund those fully. I still don't have that. I still see it as like, okay, if we go like even, like if we break even, I'm fine. That's how I see it still with the docs. That's enough for me to kind of still pursue it. Now we just got funding for the new film in like a development grant, so we're on a different level now where we can actually get money into the projects, and that's on my, I guess my second like official film, but I've made films for like 10 years. I've made, as I said, the Heartbeat series, which was on Swedish television, which most of you haven't seen, but if you're Swedish you probably have seen it. And that was like 4 hours. It's like a big ass project to edit and to shoot it. I was the DOP and I was the editor for that. So it was like a huge project to make, and that doesn't even count as something that I've made because it's television, because it's, you know, off my directing slate of films. But I mean, I've made it in the exact same way. I was traveling around. There wasn't really a director on that thing. It was like a producer and me. So a lot of the directing came down to a mix of the producer and me. So it's a crazy thing to kind of see those projects and you don't really put them on your resume. But that's how I solved it. So I did that first, and then I did the commercial directing, and then I made like Zero Silence off of the more TV cinematography based type of funding. And then I applied for grants as well, but I wasn't depending on it, because that's how I think you stop. As soon as you're depending on this project making money, that's not how the big production companies work. You have to have like a couple of projects in production and in development. So you search for development grants for certain projects and then in production for other projects. You can't have just like one film that I'm making. You have to have them in different stages and have to start them all the time, because one will die, 3 will die, and then 1 will get made or whatever. But you need to kind of spread the lottery of what is being completed out a bit. And especially what makes you money, because not everything will make you money, and certain things will definitely be like a waste of time in the end. But yeah, I don't know, it's just the way that I've stayed productive. It's just like do that and then always try to have like baby steps happening on the project. So if I have a doc, I always have these sets of things that needs to happen. So now we applied for a development grant. Okay, that's done. Okay, next we need to shoot the next stuff. Okay, and then we go and do that. That's probably going to happen in May. And then next step is just like, okay, so we need to shoot another thing, and then we need to edit stuff, and then we need to apply for more funding. And then for like Confused African, now we're about to sell it to TV. So then we're packaging the web series, and then like, okay, so this is what the TV version would be, and then we package that, and then that becomes like a different project. And then from that we probably go to making a feature film, and then we package that and we make that towards like a Netflix or other players. So you need to have those different things going on all the time. You can't just have like one thing, and certain things won't pan out. Like maybe we just sell like Confused African to TV and not Netflix, and maybe we don't sell it to TV, but we do sell it to Netflix. You never know, and you need to take those chances and see what happens. That's usually how we do it. And then the channel itself, that's a really good way of staying productive. I mean, we try stuff in a funny way. I think what we realize now is we were making Confused African. Last episode is coming out tomorrow. What we realized is that this is like an official kind of rough cut that we've made, basically. So if you analyze the whole series, you'll see, like, because this is not the end of the project. The web series is just the beginning. For us, the web series is just like launching the film at a festival. So let's say you make a short and then you launch it at a festival. That's what you should compare, for instance, the Confused African to. But then you would have like a rough cut that you can pan around to like different broadcasters or VOD services or whatever it is. That's how we go about it. So now that's done. Okay, next step is trying to sell it. So we decided, even before the series was out, we decided, okay, on the second episode, that's when we approach television and try to sell it. And we do that because we don't want to have those rights laying around, because then we want to go to like Netflix and those, and then we just want to sell Sweden first, because that's a territory that they won't care so much about. So we want to be quick to sell it to TV in Sweden first and then move on. And like the whole launching platform is the YouTube channel, and the channel makes us more productive because we're forced to do stuff every week, and like even like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days a week. And this as well is like a more efficient way of communicating with an audience, because once you do Q&As at festivals, sometimes nobody shows up, like just the people that work at the festival, and that amazes me that they can fund that, because I should be able to, you know, fund these types of conversations that is being made here, or that's being made on YouTube by other filmmakers and together, or like collaborating in some new formal way. But that's not where the money is. They're at the festivals. So yeah, that's a long answer to a question of how I stay, or how you can stay productive. And I always expect all the projects to be delayed, and that's why you need to have separate type of projects going on, so that if one gets delayed, you work on another thing. For me, commercial directing is perfect, because I can just go and I can work on stuff where I know that, okay, now I'm earning money, blah, 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 and then I know where I'm at, and then I go to my next project, and like it's an on and off switch. So, okay, now I'm on this, I clear my brain while I'm on the commercial assignments, then I go back to work on my projects, and I feel more relieved by having that structure. Have you been in the sun, or is the grade a little heavy? I have been in the sun, and I haven't changed the LUT that I'm using. Yeah, part-time farmer. Alex Smith. Do you know how I can record audio for GH5 in variable frame rate mode at the same time as record video? I don't think you can. I think that's a limitation. I'm not 100%, but I think that's the case. That's usually how it is with the variable frame rates. It's the same in the C300. It's probably the same. Yeah, I think it's the same in the Ursa. I think so. I haven't thought about it in the Ursa. I haven't had it long enough. But with the C300 you can't even have autofocus then. So that's just a limitation that the cameras have a lot of the time. But I'm not 100% sure. I'm currently watching your color grading course. Thank you so much for giving me it for free. I'm planning on making a video on color theory, giving you guys of what I've learned from you. Awesome. Yeah, so if you haven't checked out the course, check out the course. It's on Udemy. Yeah, we put that together. We're still gonna add stuff, so we're still gonna add new parts, and we're gonna update it to Resolve 15 when that comes out for real as well. So it's going to be an updated course. So don't, like, just because you watched it, don't expect it to be like that forever. But we probably send updates anyway. How important is it to have a driver's license? Not important at all, but it makes it easier as you're starting out, because you can do more running type of assignments. So depending on talent and depending on what you have on your resume or in your show reel, it can matter. If you want to have an assistant job, it can matter. But if you want to have an A role or whatever that is, then it doesn't matter at all. You shouldn't be driving a car if you're a DOP, for instance. I think that's a really shitty ass producer that lets you do that. So if that happens, then yeah, tell them to get a driver. I think that a lot of the time photographers or filmmakers are being used like that, and I don't like it. And that's because I've been a DOP, and I think that they kind of put that on you, and then what, you're supposed to go and shoot for like 10 or 16 hours as well. That's just stupid. Nobody would okay that on a union level at all. So I just despise those people that force you to do that. I wouldn't drive, but yeah, then again, I'm in a different position. Okay, so how do you make sure you get a good story while being 100% in the conversation, or when you're following them around, how do you know when to film them when it isn't necessary adding to the story? Usually I think about it in like a little bit different stages, different things. When I meet somebody for the first time, I usually just want to observe as much as I can. So I just want to see, like, okay, so maybe we can direct what type of scene we're getting. But I think most people miss when it comes to documentaries, and especially you see that in the B-roll type of theory on YouTube as well, is that people don't fucking understand that you need to have scenes. That's what you need. When we made, for instance, Heartbeats, the series about EDM in Sweden or in the world, the most important thing for us to do that series and to make it, because it was a super shiny ass series. It was sponsored by Carlsberg. It was like a big series for a commercial channel, because it was a youth program and it had a lot of views and all that, but it still was super shiny. Like, it was long before, it was in 2012, and there were so many slides and like all these things like Steadicams that people didn't use that back then, and that was a big thing to kind of structure everything in a way that would work, that you could tell a story in that way. And when you have, for instance, those type of people, you have a different understanding, because they were used to, for instance, media and doing that type of stuff. So then you can have that type of narrative. But then when I go in and I do stuff now with like people that I haven't met, I usually just try to let them go and be by themselves, do the stuff that, for instance, I've decided for them to do. So let's say now I filmed in Lofoten a while back. I want him to, because he's a fisherman, and the story is going to be about that. So I just want to be on a boat with him the first time that I come there. I don't want to sit at home doing an interview and all those things. Just like that type of thing doesn't add anything to what I know about him already. So I just wanted to be out on the boat, like experience the element. He's going to be more natural because it's his element. And just like feel all those things and experience them for real. That's super important the first time I come. The second time I shoot something, I've thought about everything I shot. I probably did like a short introduction interview at the end of it all for the first time I shot. So then I go back and I think about it. Okay, try to piece the story together. Where's the kind of conflict, or what can I develop? For the second time I come, I have those scenes decided already, most of them. And then you make sure that that happens. So you book those scenes, so to speak. And I think most people don't understand that when you do stuff, you need to switch scenes all the time. So when we did the Heartbeat series with EDM, that's what we did. We knew that to make it look like and feel big, like it's a huge, massive production, we needed to switch scenes all the time. We could be in one location for a short amount of time and then switch. That's something that I probably learned that a lot of that on those productions that I still do today. That's why we're able to do like commercials that look as good as the big commercials, but then on a lower level, because we're more efficient with what we do and we have a smaller team. And I think those things you need to really think about. So if you can kind of think about the story, figure out what key scene would be the best way to show the character and show your story, then make sure to film that first and just follow them around for the first time. And then you're gonna start seeing the story, and then you're gonna start seeing what scenes are needed, because you can't think about it as being, for instance, B-roll. That's a stupid way of telling a story. You should think about it in scenes. What scene do you need to tell this, or what scene do you need to kind of contradict that, and then tell those stories by shooting B-roll of that scene. But don't shoot B-roll for the sake of B-roll, for instance. So that's what I think about in terms of like storytelling and how to talk to them as well. So when I talk to them, I kind of make sure that a scene is happening, and then I shoot that. And then a lot of time I just want to follow them in that scene. And then the interview will maybe have the words, like then I can construct what I've seen, I can connect that into words. It's more complex than just like shooting stuff and asking them on the spot. A lot of the stuff has to be like, you have to have a double focus, shooting them, listening to what's happening, at the same time formulating like questions or an idea of what the story is and how things are connected. Yeah. And then I also, this has a lot to do with that I was a cinematographer. I hate like filming too much. I just shoot the stuff that I need or think I need. And then I turn the camera off. When I'm satisfied, I turn it off. And that's probably too early sometimes. But I just hate working with directors that they don't know when to turn off. They just shoot everything. They have no clue of what they're doing or what they're after. You need to learn that. Like, you need to really learn how to know when to, like, okay, I'm satisfied. Things will happen that maybe I will regret not shooting them or whatever, but that happens. And that, when that happens, you will get a creative obstacle to overcome. And that obstacle will make your film more unique when you have to handle it in a certain way. That's at least how I see it. So if you miss something, it's not the end of the world. You just find a way to tell that cinematically in a different way than as it happened. Yeah. Strap recorder on top of the camera was a tip for the audio. Yeah, that's like dual audio is the way to go, but problem will be that you won't have it in sync because of the different frame rates. So you're still not going to be able to like have the audio in the same frame rates. But yeah, dual audio in any way. I like the Electrosonics PDR with the Sanken COS. I'm strictly against cars though. I dislike being in a car and see no way of ever driving myself. Then don't drive. Get one of these. Electric skateboard. It's more fun. Alex, can you host a short doc competition on your channel? Yeah, I should be able to host a short doc competition. How many is interested in being part of that short competition. Comment below and we will kind of see how many people would be interested, and if it's enough, then it's gonna be interesting to do it. If it's too few, then maybe not. Do you ever show clients rough cuts, or do you like to have a polished cut before for the client to see? I have a client that wants to see every part of the creation, and it drives me nuts. Yeah, tell them to get the fuck out of there. It's like having a director or something when you're editing and you have somebody over your shoulder looking. You need to set those boundaries. Nowadays it's Andre that does this, but you usually have to do this beforehand. You need to go through the process. Okay, so this is how we do it. Okay, this is what you kind of do in the like PPM or pre-production meeting type of documents. This is what we have as deadlines. Okay, so here is like we're shooting stuff. Editor has time to edit. This is when we show the client, and before that, this is when we show the agency. And then whatever you have before that is just your time. So then you just tell them to nope. And I think it's important that you go through the process for them to understand, so that you just like open with the whole thing of, yeah, but I need to have this time, otherwise I can't deliver on these like in this experience that you're kind of pushing me into. Because the thing is that most of the time, you see this when you do the YouTube channel, it can take me half a day to produce something that's as good as something that takes months when you work with an agency. That's just because it's a lot of will and there's a lot of ideas of what people want to make, and in the end I'm probably more satisfied with the stuff that I made myself anyway. And I think that whole aspect of it is something that you kindly need to make them understand, that for you to deliver something that they will like you're working for them, but you need to set limits if you're going to be able to deliver something that you can stand for. So we usually have like a couple of days where they don't see anything. Usually I have a version where I'm okay, now I'm satisfied, this is good, it can only get worse. That's when I give it to them, and then it usually gets worse. Sometimes, rarely, it gets better, but usually it means that they want to bring in stuff that isn't really like, it's not enhancing the story, it's just enhancing their brand. And that's the way it is. They have the money and they pay for it, so you can't really get out of that whole situation. But the first edit is usually exactly how I want it, and then they kind of rework that. And I mean, sometimes things will be better, but as a whole I think a lot of the time it's worse, and that's just because there's like added graphics just to force something that I don't think all the time is needed, and like you have like a waste of time in terms of, okay, so you have this time to tell it, sometimes they think it's too short, sometimes it's too long, and a lot of those things doesn't, I think, add so much to like the general story. The stuff that they come with in that stage is usually like, okay, it could have been published before, and it can also be published after. It's not necessarily worse or better, but it's just different. But in my opinion, it's worse than the stuff that I made first. But as a brand, maybe it is better. I don't know. I don't believe in that whole over pushing a brand type of thing. So it depends on who it is, though. We've had a super great client now, which where we've done like these sob stories, not sob stories, but Saab the brand, and that has been like almost totally free, like totally free in terms of creativity, and like they haven't had much opinions, so that's been great. And those type of clients you will not get a lot of. Okay, so is there any way to use footage that has no audio? I always shoot stuff with no intention of using the audio, and then I sound design everything. All my docs, I wonder how much, but I would probably say like 70% is not the audio that was recorded in the scenes, but that's just me guessing. But most of the stuff is not the audio in the scenes. Or I pick a small portion of it, like to make, for instance, you have a somebody talking, and then the whole sound environment, the audio of somebody opening a door, footsteps, all those are sound design. None of it is the original audio. It just sounds too small and compressed that way. So documentary is never like that type of film if it's a proper production. On YouTube it can be that because there's no time and like people aren't used to working like that, but for TV and all that there's like a proper post-production budget, so usually they put a lot of time into making it sound more than reality, or you need to kind of fake the sound of reality to make it feel or experience it more real, ironically enough. Okay. Competition, I like to have a challenge, but it's hard to justify producing a short documentary in English unless there is a good topic. So should we have a topic that we decide, or should we just have you send your best work? I would prefer you send your best film and then it being translated or whatever. That doesn't matter. I think it's just like making these like 30-second type of competitions. Like maybe it can be a good thing, but usually you get like stressed work out of it, and people they can do better, and that's such a pity when you feel that. Hello from the Netherlands. Hello from Sweden. Oakleaf Productions. Have you worked for a company to get experience before going out on your own? I mean, I did work as a cinematographer and an editor for a long time, and then I've run, I guess this is my third production company. First one I had with a different partner, then I was alone, and then now I have this one with my brother Andre. So it's been like a long, windy road to learn how to produce stuff, and I made my first doc, Zero Silence, where I learned how to produce, and then after that I produced, and then Andre came on board, and then I stopped producing. So I've worked with producers, I've worked with television especially, where you learn a lot of the ins and outs of producing, because you're really close to the production teams, and then I worked with commercials. Like I've directed, produced, shot like commercials since I've begun, but on different levels. Not at all on the level that it's at now, but still it's been the way I've learned by doing it. I've worked with other people, but I've never been employed in the sense that I've been like a regular employee. I've always been freelance, but working with the same production companies for like most of the productions. So the production company that I work with this EDM show, for instance, I work with all their TV productions, and I did all the editing and DOP work for their TV productions. And I did that for a long time, and then you learn how they produce, and you learn from working with other directors how to direct and how to not direct. So that's pretty much how I've learned. I learned by being especially a cinematographer, because you learn how people screw up productions, and you learn how people screw up directing, and then you try not to make the same mistakes. I started live streaming myself and I love it. I use my old GH3 and a gaming capture card really works great. What do you use to stream? I use the Teradek Bolt 501, I think. I think it's 501. Not sure. It's a good one, but I would love if I somehow could get a second camera or a screen, which I don't think that one lets me. So I don't know how that would work. Maybe I can just check in the control room here, because I think I should be able to have like a second camera somehow, because that would be awesome. I don't know how it works. Maybe you know. Because if I would have that, then it would be possible to show stuff as this live stream is going on, which would be pretty cool. Instead of just having my face. Yeah, but I don't know how you would do that. Ingestion settings. Add streaming optional features. It must be possible though. Because otherwise you have to use Wirecast, which I've used before, and I mean, it works, but it's not that good. It's not like it's this amazing software that improves the stream that much. It's just that you can actually mix stuff live. But I'm also thinking that maybe I should have the Blackmagic. They have a streaming device. I guess it's called web streaming or something. And that one you could probably do this with. Otherwise, you can probably also do it with the Blackmagic. What's it called? The one that I use for my display. Something extreme. Shadow? I don't know. Yeah, it's just to get SDI or HDMI inputs through Thunderbolt. So that one maybe could do it as well. But if you know any way of doing it, then that would be awesome. HDMI switcher. Yeah, that's what I have, I think. Because I have Thunderbolt and HDMI in. So I need to try it out. Because I've also been thinking of doing like, oh, okay, maybe I can do a live stream and do like a grading live stream. So just grading something, some project, and having questions and like just doing that for like a themed type of experience. That could also be something. Or just like breaking down a project, or doing a competition thing where we show all the 3-5 top competition for a short doc competition, something like that. Could work. Is there a possibility to work with professionals without training or experience beyond a hobby in the year between school and university? Absolutely. It's all about like connecting with people and finding people that want to make things. I think if you look at the local, usually there's local like interest groups or like community centers for filmmakers. Like people want to have people working on different projects. So for instance, you maybe DOP something and then somebody else DOP for you, or edit or whatever, like partner like that. Yeah, I think that's a good way if you want to like branch out and get to know people, because people like working with people that are passionate foremost. It's not so much about talent in the end. I mean, that becomes important in the end, but it's much more important when you start out to have people that actually likes doing the same thing. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's it for today. Go watch the Avicii documentary if you can. I know this is a Swedish version that I watched, so I don't know where it's at or if it's out, but I'm so sure that people will buy it all over the world. So sooner or later you will be able to watch it. Yeah, crazy. But anyway, thanks for watching. Tomorrow is last episode of Confused African, and then yeah, we're gonna talk about what's next also this week. Otherwise, see you guys soon. Okay, bye bye.